Tim, what is it about these bugs in a box?
There's no way to shrink it down. There's no words that can describe it. They bring a healing. You either know or you have to know. The smell of a healthy hive, once you smell it, you'll never forget it. But just the ability to get up, take your health in your own hands. See, that's what we have to do. The desire to work these bees and the healing you get from it. It's something about a box full of bugs, you know what I'm saying? It's got a healing to it.
Mike, what is it about those bugs in a box?
Wow, those bugs in a box. There's something about them. It's an insect that can do so much, so many functions it has, so many things it has within itself, and we get to manipulate it. God allowed us to manipulate His creation and do the things we can do. We can make products from it, and it's just exciting to sit there and be able to propagate them and manipulate them and watch them do their thing and explode on you and watch the direct results of what you do. To me, it's nothing like it. It's like almost an addiction when you get to do this and you have this ability given to you to do this. So to me, that's what they are. They're just amazing, amazing insects.
Randy, what is it about those bugs in a box?
There's just something magical about those bugs in a box. I don't know a whole lot of beekeepers that don't have a watching chair or some way to sit out and just watch their bees. You just watch them work. It's just something that it's like watching a campfire. It's like sitting around at midnight watching a campfire. You're out there by yourself and it's quiet. But I do the same thing with my bees. They don't know all there is to know. I'll never know all there is to know, but there's so much to learn. It's all so interesting, and it brings together a community, in the way we're doing it with YouTube and with other things. It brings together a community of like-minded people that are, we're all a little off, kind of. It's relaxing, it's fun, and I'll be doing it from now on, just like you, I'm sure.
Bruce, what is it about those bugs in a box?
Man, I don't know. It's addictive from the day I first opened one up. It's therapeutic to me. It's always an adventure and I just never know what to expect, and it's just very miraculous to me how they do what they do, and I don't know what it is. It's just something, there's an it about it that is just addicting that I just love. And I guess it's a way to interact fully with nature, and it's like opening a gift. Every time you open one, you never know what you're going to expect. It's a surprise, and so many things to learn, so many things to do, and so many things you can do with it, and I just love it. If you ever doubt that there's a God, just open a beehive and look at the bees, because there's just no way that just happened randomly. There's definitely something divine about that, and I just love it.
What is it about these bugs in a box that keeps us coming back, that keeps us working them in the rain, traveling across the country?
In the heat.
And the heat, the snow, the rain.
Snow?
The snow. That's a long story, right, Tim? Oh. There is just something about the bees, and I think the bees are just a conduit to people. Bees are a conduit to a connection that's way greater than ourselves. We can't fully understand what it is, but we're drawn to it. As we've heard folks talk about, there's a healing with the bees, mental, physical, spiritual. It ties people together, makes those connections, it brings us all together, it fulfills a part of us, that the result of engaging with the bees, the result of that action, the consequence of that action is joy and happiness. What is it exactly about those bees? I don't think I'll ever know, but I think I'll spend all my days trying to find out. Well, hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Stream Team Beekeeping Chat. I'm really looking forward to tonight, guys. How's everyone doing tonight?
Doing good.
Doing
Yeah.
good. Well, tonight we have a special guest, Bob BINNIE. In the bottom right corner, we have our regular Bruce Jenny, Bruce's Bees, at least my bottom left. And then we've got Brian Coper, Castle Hives up there behind the scenes, making sure all the things are plugged in and lights are on and things are looking good. So I appreciate you guys taking time tonight to talk about bees. You saw in that last little intro in that video there, you noticed there was a lighthouse. And it's there. That particular lighthouse was built in the late 1800s. That particular lighthouse we just visited about a month ago, and it's there on Sanibel Island. If you're familiar with what's going on, I'm not sure how you can't be. When Hurricane Ian came through, it absolutely decimated all those bridges, all that entire area, wiped out all those old historical buildings. But what's interesting is, what still stands is that old lighthouse. And there's a lot we could say about how important that is. I think we all, whether it's storms in life, storms as we grow the farm, our beekeeping enterprises or careers, sometimes it feels like we are that ship at sail on rough seas in the dark. You're taking on water and you feel like you're heading right towards the rocks. And every now and again, you'll see up there on the hill is a lighthouse. And that lighthouse is showing us the way, maybe showing us safe harbor, giving us some direction. I can say without a shadow of a doubt, tonight's guest has been a lighthouse for so many, including myself, with our beekeeping career, the choices that we've made. He's been an absolutely incredible influence on our beekeeping, but also who he is as a person. And tonight, it is our absolute great honor to introduce our special guest tonight, Mr. Bob BINNIE. Bob, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Those are some pretty kind words. Now I'm going to have, Craig, you shouldn't have done that. Now I have to live up to all that stuff. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's good to be here.
It's, and all the different parts of the country, we're kind of all going through the different phases of the year. Up here in Ohio, it's nature's grand finale. The dogwoods are just fire red. The maples are orange. It's a sea of white aster and goldenrod. I don't know that you can be a beekeeper and not appreciate the art of nature, the colors, the textures, the sounds, the shapes, and to be able to appreciate the beauty right in front of us. And Bob, you have had, decades and decades of experience, not only keeping bees, but fine-tuning your art of beekeeping. And I thought tonight maybe we could get into a little bit of the mindset, but also the art of beekeeping. That's going to be a little bit different for everybody. But I can only imagine all of your experience and all the canvases that you have painted and put away and bring a new canvas on. So I'd really like to paint, just to kind of get into the mind of Bob BINNIE a little bit, and talk about the art of beekeeping. But the first question I've got to ask is, Bob, what is it about these bugs in a box for you?
Oh, I don't know. I listened to that was a very interesting intro, and I'm much different than almost anybody I know. I was attracted to the business of beekeeping. When I first read that, first book I read was How to Keep Bees and Sell Honey by Walter T. Kelly, was published in 1955. And I was just intrigued by the idea of possibly making a living at beekeeping. I was attracted to the business end. And of course, the bees themselves have become very interesting. But, my initial attraction was different than almost anybody I know. It was about the business end. It really was. Being in business with bees has allowed me to be creative in ways that not many businesses would have. How do you describe that? It's endless thinking, obviously. You're always trying to outguess Mother Nature, which is almost impossible, but you got to try, right? I guess that's part of the art of beekeeping, trying to outguess, what the future is going to bring. I often say you need a crystal ball in this business, and boy, wouldn't I be rich if I had one. The art of beekeeping, that's an interesting concept. We were just talking about it yesterday. I brought that up with my crew. We're feeding right now. And normally by now we're beginning to thicken up our syrup in order to get the colonies good and heavy for winter. And and just today we mixed another batch of thin syrup. We're still running thinner than 1-to-1, and they were questioning me about that. And they say, "Why aren't we doing what you tell everybody else to do?" And and I said, it's because I'm looking at the weather forecast here, and we've got 2 weeks of at least 2 weeks before frost. There's no temperatures in the 30s at night for at least 2 weeks in our forecast. And I said, guys, that's the art of beekeeping. You got to be willing to shift and change and go with the flow. And tried to explain what I meant by, I literally just yesterday was talking about the art of beekeeping with the crew. And the word art that you alluded to in the beginning with the beautiful portraits and the leaves on the trees, that's all considered art. But if you look up the word art in the sense that we're talking about right now in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the definition you get is the skill that is acquired through experience. That's the art of beekeeping. And that's not anything you can teach somebody. You can't read that in a book at all. That's has to come through experience. And a very wise man once said that wisdom is not assimilated with the eyes; it's assimilated with the atoms. And then he went on to say, you can't really expound on anything with what would be the right word, with authority until it becomes a part of your whole being. And that's when you have the wisdom of anything, whether you're a plumber or a master carpenter. It's the experience that gets you to that point. And the art of beekeeping really, really does come with experience. You can't learn it in a year. You can't learn it in 3 years. It takes repetition. You got to open that bee box a lot of times to really get that wisdom that gives you gives you that art of beekeeping. That might sound odd, but I look at the word master beekeeper a little different. I recognize and I absolutely think that the master beekeeping programs that are out there are brilliant, worth going after. But honestly, when I think of the word master beekeeper, I look at it in a little different light. It's not anything it's not answers on a test. It's not something you read in a book and take a test on later. It's not community service. It's years and years of experience that give you that mastership. And when you have that, you've got a handle on the art of beekeeping. Does that sound crazy?
No, that sounds spot on. And I think if you, in my limited experience on this earth, is if you go seek out a master, that title is typically not one they're even will hold or even take responsibility for. They are practicing the craft of whatever that they're doing with no title.
Yeah.
And the really, really good ones are the ones, in my experience, are the ones that aren't looking for the title. There is no ego or pride. They are just exercising the art of whatever that it is: blacksmithing, beekeeping, farming, you name it. They are so engaged in the act and the art of that the title and the nomenclature means nothing.
Yeah, I never thought about that, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, the humble people are some of the best masters at any craft, are the humble ones. Yeah, you're right.
I tell you, Bob, when last year when I was out running around with you guys working some of the bee yards, I'll never forget it, and I've told the story several times. But I'm in the back seat. You and Jesse are up front, and you guys are laying out the day. And of course, I'm walking into the operation not knowing what happened yesterday or last week or the month, and not knowing what all the plans for are in the future. You guys are kind of laying all the things out. We're going to the cell yard, do this, do that. We need this many cells. We're going to do this. We're going to go check on these couple yards. We have to grab all these, make up the nukes, take the nukes out, and go through all these things. And it was it was complicated. It was simple. It was simply complicated. There was a certain organization within the chaos that was nothing short of beautiful. But I can remember sitting back there thinking, wow. And I asked you the question, And I said, Bob, at what point in your career did you feel like you knew what you were doing? And you looked back and you smiled and you said, there's days that I still don't know what I'm doing.
That's a good answer. That's the right answer. I'm glad I was smart enough to give you the right answer. Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah, there's days when we sit here and look at each other. I'm in my office right now. You've seen it. The chairs are over there where the crew sits.
Yeah.
Every morning we have this little 5 or 10 minute, shoot the breeze and figure out what we're going to do for the day. And there's days when I arrive and I don't know what I'm going to do. I kind of bounce it off them. What did you guys see yesterday? And some of it just evolves in the moment, honestly. I shouldn't even admit that. People think I'm this brilliant business person. I'm not. I'm just holding on to the wheel and hope the tires don't spin off, you know?
Well, you laugh about that, but hearing you say that, I'll never forget the feeling of, I don't know if elation is the right word, or I felt like I was off the hook. Like I didn't have to have all the things figured out all the time. I don't have to predict every outcome. I can literally just go with the breeze, see where the day goes and the week goes and how the colony goes and the yard or the pallet or the day and there was a certain freedom that I had never felt ever in beekeeping, because you just had that, you turned around and smiled and said that one thing. That's a big deal.
Well, this little item right here dictates my day quite often. You can guess which app on this phone is used the most, right? The weather app.
Right.
That dictates a lot of stuff. You can make all the planning in the world, but the weather can change things in a heartbeat for you. You got to be flexible in this business. If you're rigid and you're unable to go with the flow, failure is probably in your future. If you're trying to be a beekeeper, you've got to be able to be flexible and shift direction at any moment because of some little thing that happens. Every day, there's not a day that goes by that we don't change our mind on something because of something we see in the field or what the weather's doing, or maybe an employee doesn't show up that day because they're sick, and suddenly we've got to change everything. So if you're going to be successful in the bee business, you've really, really got to be flexible.
Have you always been so flexible and be able to go with the breeze, or is this something that has developed over time, or is this something that you learned from a mentor as well?
I don't know. Maybe it's a lack of being able to, I've never, lined out my week, literally. Some people get out some sort of paper and pencil and have dates and times, and this is what's going to happen on that day. I've never been that way. I just, greet the day. Every day is a brand new day and new challenges. And of course, some things have to happen on a given day if you're raising queens or something like that. But I just try to go with the day. And what's surprising sometimes is, usually we overperform my expectations. I'm continuously, even now after over 40 years, I'm still surprised at how much we get done in relation to what I think we would have. So I don't know. And then contrary to that, the crew is always surprised that we get done what I say we're going to do. We're like, there's no way. There's no way we're making that many queens or that many nukes, or there's no way we're going to sell 500 nukes out of those 200 colonies. That ain't going to happen. I say, don't worry, it's going to happen. So they're always surprised at what happens, how much we do, and I'm always surprised that we do more than I expect. So I know that probably sounds odd, but that's how we work. We do more than I tell them we're going to do, and we accomplish more than I think we can accomplish. That probably sounds crazy.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I can remember, I think the day that we were going out, you were almost anticipating finding a certain result. And I can't remember the exact conversation that we had, but the takeaway was from it, and maybe you could speak to it a little bit, is it sometimes, sometimes the actions that we take in the yard or for the day are sometimes damage control or damage assessment. We're thinking, okay, is something gone wrong? Is something going in the wrong direction? And we're kind of preparing, okay, if I go out, am I going to need feed? Am I going to need boxes? Are they going to need, broke back down? Are they going to need moved out? What's going on? And you mentioned something when we were talking then, is that sometimes you do worry, or you are almost foreseeing there to be an issue that's actionable, but then you get out in the bee yard and it's fine. It's okay. It's not where you thought
Yeah.
it were to be. You have to be flexible, I think, to be able to engage in that
Yeah.
constant roller coaster, don't you?
I guess so. Yeah. You know, Tommy, you remember Tommy that used to work for me?
Yeah.
He had this funny little thing. He said, "Man, we need a semi truck to take with us to the bee yard every day because we never know what we're going to be doing or what piece of equipment we're going to need." And, you know, there's some partial truth in that. You get to the bee yard and it's never exactly like you think it's going to be. So, yeah, flexible in all ways, always. You know, and you've been with us. You see what we do. We load the truck. We go prepared for a lot of potential issues. And part of the problem is that we may not see a bee yard for 3 or 4 weeks, and we're not exactly sure what's happening there. When you're able to visit your beehives once a week, you can anticipate, you know, what you're going to see a little better than we're able to. We get a lot of pleasant surprises, and we get a lot of unpleasant surprises. So happens every year. There's always surprises, always.
Yeah. Well, Bob, tonight we have a few giveaways for the folks that are listening, and then I know Bruce and Brian are each going to have a question for you throughout the night. So I thought we'll go ahead and take care of one of the first giveaway here at this little break. This has been a very collaborative effort between me and Brian and Bruce. We're almost a year coming up here in December. We've only missed a handful of Wednesday nights, and it's been an absolute honor, and just to be able to sit and chat with folks and interact, build that community, that constant, collaboration. We've gotten to meet folks across the country, break bread. Bob, I got to go on trips with you and see all the guys down in Florida, and that's an incredible opportunity to take it beyond just the face-to-face or the internet thing, to take it to to actually sit down, break bread, shake someone's hand, get to know them. It's an incredible honor. Not everyone is able to do that. But tonight it's a collaborative kind of scene kind of going on here. What we have is something pretty cool. So we thought all the folks that are in the comments here, we have 3 giveaways tonight. The first one is a Stream Team honey sampler. So what you'll have is a pound jar from Castle Hives here in Ohio. You'll get a pound jar from Bruce's Bees. You'll get a pint jar from us. But here's the big deal. You guys ready? I'm going to pull a Fred Dunn and pull something off the set here.
Uh-oh. He's trying to step up his game here, is what he's trying to do.
So we've got a beautiful pound jar of Brian. That's probably, I think that was spring honey, wasn't it? Like it says, I know it's terrible to hold something.
Yeah. The lighter colored was my spring.
Okay, and then we've got so that's Castle Hives. We have one from Bruce's Bees, and Bruce, that was probably let's see, when did I see you?
It's the summer. It's the tallow honey.
Summer, right? And then this is we about the same time frame. Here's one of our pint jars here. But here is the cream of the crop. Are you guys ready? Now, this particular pound jar is highly coveted. It's folks all across the country and the world. When you say honey, there's one very specific varietal of honey that is very, very sought after. It can be pretty expensive, and a lot of beekeepers, especially maybe in the Lakemont, Georgia area, go to great extremes to make sure that it's nothing but this honey inside of those frames and in bottles. So tonight, on top of getting a jar from Bruce, Brian, and me, you're also going to get a jar of the Blue Ridge Honey Company, Bob Binney's very own sourwood. Wow. And so that's what picked that up from Bob on the last trip down there. So if you're interested in the honey sampler, go ahead and hit comment. What is it, Brian? What do we do? Hashtag Stream Team Honey in the comments.
Stream Team Honey. Okay.
Yeah. So if you're interested in the honey sampler, leave us the comments below, and then Brian will cue the comments up, and we'll have the little wheel of fortune, and it'll select the winner.
I'll be darned.
What's the keyword?
That must be sourwood from last year?
It would be. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So it would have been
Actually,
So
it's sourwood from 2 years
the
ago.
year before, it would have been a blue dot queen sourwood.
Blue Dutch. That's one way of looking at it. Yeah, we
Yep.
didn't make any sourwood last year, so
Yep.
that's 2 years old.
Yep. So
Interesting.
that's yep.
Everybody, if type it, exactly how it shows on the screen there. If you want entered into the drawing, I don't know who would not want in on this drawing, but just type in, hashtag Stream Team Honey, and we'll give it a minute or two, and then I'll go ahead and hit the draw. And
Brian, let's give them a few minutes to get those comments in, and maybe we'll have Bob. There is definitely an art to making honey, but you have a certain aesthetic. When you walk into your shop, you're greeted by the golden color of yellow and wood grain and warmth, and then surrounding the just below the ceiling is pretty cool. And we've taken a page out of your book and have done something similar. But what you have is folks will bring honey to the shop and you put it on display front and center.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Could you speak to us a little bit about the idea of that and what you're presenting there?
Well, I saw it at first. I saw it at a customer of mine has that on stuff like that on display. He has hundreds of bottles of honey from all over the world on a shelf, and that gave me the idea to create that in our store. It's a shame it can't be down at eye level. I don't want the customers to be able to reach out and pick up the jar. It's a shame it has to be, up high where people can't grab it, so you can't really read the label. I'm not sure how to get past that without putting it all behind glass. Some of the honey we have is literally from around the world: Germany, Russia, India, Romania, lots of countries. And I wish people could see all those labels. It's all about just adding the color and the pageantry to the business. Greg, you've been in here. You can, we play a game with colors and try to make I use the simple term warm and fuzzy, try to make it look warm and fuzzy. And when you're having everybody else's honey on display, I think that adds to the flavor of the overall feeling in the place.
Yeah, there's such a vibe and a feel when you walk in there. You're almost overwhelmed with just how gorgeous everything is. You can smell the wood. You have the lights. There's surrounded by honey, and there's candles, and there's just it's you even have your own little room where you've got the observation hive, but you also have art hanging on the walls. It's literally not just about bees. Of course, in the showroom, there's an aesthetic and all that, but you're presenting beekeeping as an art form, and it's very easy to see as soon as you walk in. I think it's beautiful.
Well, oddly enough, I first started to learn about how different colors affect the subconscious mind from an article written, maybe 2 decades ago by somebody at the National Honey Board. The National Honey Board actually did a research deal on the color and how it affects people. For instance, an example and some of these are obvious. Red gets your attention. Red makes you look. Yellow excites the subconscious. Something interesting about the color yellow, if you do math problems on a white legal pad and do the same type of work on a yellow legal pad, you make less mistakes when you're doing it on yellow paper. They found that the colors gold, black, and forest green give the subconscious impression of quality, even though you're not thinking quality. Subconsciously, it leads you in that direction. And when you look at my label, you see that I'm using Christmas colors. I use forest green, red, and a yellow background. And I chose those, although I really don't feel that my label is, one of the best labels you'll run across. It's pretty simple, but the color is there. And I think the label works because of the colors. And I tried to incorporate that in our retail store. All the gold colors of the wood. You can see the wood right behind me. That's the same color as it is in the store. And then when you look in our processing room, you see we two-toned it. We have the white upper wall, of course, which provides the brightness, but the lower wall is kind of a golden yellow. So I did all that because of what I thought people's subconscious mind when they walked in. I choose the lighting colors. I try to not there's lighting spectrum. Some create very white, bright light, which give you the ability to read something up, something small with detail that you can read well. And if you go to the warmer colors, you can't see detail quite as good, but it gives you a better feeling. That color spectrum would be 4500. I don't know what do they call that? 4500
Kelvin.
Yeah, I think that's the word. And that's the light I chose that light for the store because I think it makes people feel better, rather than really bright white light like you'd see in a Walmart or something like that. So I really thought about the place before we put it together. And your report helps me understand that it's working. Other people see the same thing.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Brian, what do you? I know you like colors, and you're into seeing the different things that are going on, and you're always fooling with lights and cameras and things like that. What do you think about that as far as colors and light? How does that play into what we do?
That is like very interesting, and I just changed my light to 4500. So
okay, yeah.
If I look better and I excite you, that's why.
Well, it looks good.
That is interesting. I would have never thought about that, but I mean, yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, you can go as high as 6,000. That's just really white, and you lose all that warm, fuzzy feeling under light like that. You really do.
Yeah,
it's interesting how so many beekeepers are also in tune with the art of all those things. Literally, just before we got on, I put the light on back over here and put it on 3200, and it went as low as it could go, and you just kind of roll with it. But I want to get some questions from Brian and Bruce as we kind of go down this route of the art of beekeeping. Brian, what question do you have for Bob?
Well, before we get to the question, I'm gonna throw in one little item, and it could almost be used as like a honey coaster. When you get your Stream Team honey package in the mail, check out this right here.
What do you got there? Wow, look at, you've been busy.
Now my brother made these, but yeah, it's a good little coaster.
Cool.
So
I guess you can bring that down Saturday when you come down for the learning yard.
Saturday when I stop down, yeah, I'll bring it. So I'll bring.
Well, Brian, why don't you go ahead and spin the honey wheel, and then we'll follow up with a question from you for Bob.
Okay. Well, there we go. 129 on here now. Let's see who it is.
Okay, the winner of the honey sampler.
Let's see.
Oh, Tim Huffman. That's great. Tim's down in Florida, so he has a firsthand experience with Ian. I enjoy watching his posts. He's growing the bee yard and getting into rearing queens and growing all that. So Tim, congratulations! I'll get that shipped out to you.
That's awesome.
It'll be next week once I get the coaster from Brian. We'll get that. We get that shipped out. We've got 2 more giveaways coming up here, so definitely stay tuned. I'll give you a hint on the grand prize at the very end is Bob, when I was down working with you guys and we collected all those blue dot queens, I also brought back a bunch of queen cells and a bunch of singles, and we really got busy isolating those genetics and saturating all of our queen yards with that more of that New World Carney Caucasian influence. And I noticed something that I thought we had a good line as is. It's after all these years of breeding from the best, the ones that were surviving us. When we blended the genetics that you had in your yard with ours, they just changed, and they took a turn I wasn't quite expecting so fast, and they keep doing that, and it's incredible. It's a good change where we're constantly seeing. So what I refer to it is I've taken Bob's Southern Appalachian queens with our Northern Appalachian queens, and we've blended those two together for an Appalachian mutt. And they probably do something similar than what yours do, but they kind of they tone down going into the wintertime. They brood down at their own rate, and then they will about scare the tar right out of you, because in February and March when we're peeking in on them, you look down and you might see 3 to 5 frames of bees, and you're thinking, oh my God, there's no way that colony is going to amount to anything. And then just when you're about ready to just freak out on them and you crack open that lid for that last check, that whole single's full. And then you add a box and they catch up, and they just have this ability to, they are in tune with nature, it seems, a little better than some of the other varieties that we've had or strains in the past, where they don't fool around making too much brood too soon. They almost just pause until everything's right, and they pulse, and they might grow a little and little, and all of a sudden it seems like when the flora and the fauna and the temps are just right, then she goes, and then she just goes and goes and goes and goes, and actually outpaces even more of a straight Italian type of a colony. And it's actually been a beautiful trait to have, especially up north here, because they seem to get by on a whole lot less. They're a lot more frugal, it seems, with the resources and also the bees they're making on the incoming. And that has been a big deal for northern beekeeping. So tonight's the grand prize giveaway is we're going to give a spring nuke from our stock that will have it'll have an Appalachian mutt queen. So you'll have the stuff that we brought from Bob, and we blended it with ours. That'll be in one of those nukes. So stay tuned here later on tonight.
Wow.
That'll be our grand prize.
That's a nice gift.
Yeah. Brian, what question do you have for Bob?
I tell you, so Bob, looking at your years of beekeeping, if there is one moment, one memory that stands out, what is that? What is that memory? What's that moment?
I do have something that stands out. I'm not doing this on purpose, but it goes back to my very first year of beekeeping. Greg, I think you've heard me talk about the old man that kind of got me started, Delmer. I don't know if I ever told you about him or not.
Oh, yeah.
He was an interesting man. He was very soft spoken, didn't have much to say, didn't have any sense of humor at all. I never saw him laugh at anything, but it didn't mean he was a rude person. He was a nice person and generous to a fault, but he was so focused and everything was about business. And that year I started 1981 by buying 8 colonies of bees, and I got to know Delmer really well because he was a retired commercial beekeeper in the area and he was selling bee supplies. And over the summer, I got to know him really good. And he was, at one point he said, "I can see you're very serious about this." And I told him I wanted to be a commercial beekeeper. And in the fall, he said, "I can see you're very serious about this." And he says, "I want to show you something." And we got in his old, I guess it was about a 1970 Pontiac wagon. Had the shocks blown out of it. He'd been using it like a pickup truck, and he took me to a bee yard. And there were 75 colonies there that were in total disarray. He almost had gotten crippled. He walked with a cane and a walker, and not shortly after that, he really had to start using a wheelchair. But we got into this bee yard, and he hadn't seen these 75 colonies in almost a year, and some of them were dead. This was pre-mites, keep that in mind. Some of them were very small, some looked kind of sick, and some needed a new queen, and some were robust. And he says, "I'd like to sell you these colonies." And I had no money. I had nothing. I was broke. And I said, I'd love to buy them from you. I can't afford the colonies. And he said, "Well, that's all right. I'll let you pay me back in honey and beeswax." And then it was obvious that many of them needed feed. And he said, "Well, I'll buy the feed. Don't worry about that." And he just took it upon himself to take me under his wing and make darn sure that I was going to be successful. He did everything it took to put me on the path. And I'll never forget that. And by the time we were out of that yard, I was doing the work. He would say, "Pop that lid. Let's look at that one. Check that one for a good queen or a bad queen." And he was sitting on top of a colony. And after about 2 hours, and I had gotten through those 75 colonies, and I was walking to the car, and he did something really odd. And I teach my crew this same thing. It's very important. We got to the car, and he turned around and looked at the bee yard, and I said, "What are you looking for?" And he said, "Always look back one more time. No matter what you think," he said, always turn around and look back at the bee yard one more time. So that was an interesting lesson. But in that moment, it almost was like an intuitive light bulb aha moment. I felt, I didn't feel, I knew in that moment I was standing in the presence of a true master beekeeper, like we talked about earlier. This man was a master beekeeper, and I saw it in that. That was probably the last time he ever went to a bee yard in his life, because he died not too long after that. And it almost makes me want to have a tear in my eye thinking about that moment, looking at him, looking back, and just watching him. And I just felt, man, this guy is a true master beekeeper, and the last thing he wants to do on this planet is to make sure I'm successful.
Wow.
So it was a very touching moment in that bee yard. Just kind of that aha moment. Really kind of I don't know how to describe my feeling, really. It was just tremendous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Bob, did you in that moment? I know it's, if you have the memory of it, when you felt like Delmer was putting you on the path, did you feel as though doors were opening then?
Well, yeah, they'd been opening all summer, and that was just that really was the huge door of that season. Well, there was another one. About a month later, he asked me to come on over to his place, and he said, so another interesting lesson, very simple but very profound. He said, if you're going to be a commercial beekeeper, you need to work for a commercial beekeeper for a while. And he didn't even ask me if I wanted to do it. He just got on the phone and dialed the phone, and I could hear his end of the conversation. He said, yeah. He said, you still looking for help, some help? And I didn't hear the other end of the conversation. He said, okay, I'm sending somebody over. And he hung up the phone. He said, here's the address. Go meet this man. And that was one of the other neat things he did for me. So another huge door in that first season was just tremendous. It was just door after door after door. And that was the last big one. That was in November of 1981. And Delmer, that first year, he opened all those doors for me. And he told me what I had to do. I don't, have you heard this story, Greg? First time I met him, I bought those 8 colonies, and the guy told me, oh, everything you need here, you can split bees here, you can grow, everything you need is right in these 8 triple deeps. Well, when I got them opened up, complete novice, had never opened a beehive before, they were absolutely full of queen cells, every one of them.
Nice.
Some of them had already swarmed. Some of them were going to swarm, and I'd read enough books to where I realized that I actually had something valuable there if I could just figure out how to use it. And so the man that sold me the bees had told me about Delmer selling supplies, and I went over to Delmer's place, which was about 45 minutes away, and walked in, had my Volkswagen van and a couple $100, which back then was a lot of money. And I gave him my list of stuff, and he said, what are you trying to do? And I told him exactly what I was in the middle of. And he said, he didn't even answer. He just said, okay, nodded his head. And then as I stood in his shop, he started wandering around and taking stuff off the shelf. After about 10 minutes, he had a mountain of equipment in the middle of the floor. And I was watching this going, okay, I can't afford this. So I stopped him at some point. He said, I think this is what you need. And I said, well, let's just hold on right here now. Wait a minute. I said, I can't afford this. I said, this is way more equipment than I can afford. And he says, well, this is what you need to do right now. And I said, sir, I didn't know him from Adam. He didn't know me. We'd never met each other. I said, sir, I can't afford this. This is way too much. And he thought for a moment. Now, I'm going to say it again. We'd never met each other. And then his next line was, well, you can just pay me back in honey and wax.
Oh, man.
This gave me true pause. I turned around and stood looking out the window probably for 5 or 10 seconds thinking, what's wrong here? This doesn't make sense. And I just got a nice warm feeling. I felt like it was all good. And I turned around and I said, okay. And he didn't even ask for my phone number. I'm not even sure I'd even told him my name. And he said, just, get back with me. Let me know how things are going. So I did all this work with all this equipment. I made 35 splits with all these queen cells. And it turned out that I had 32 takes after all this. And after the queens had hatched and mated, I went back to him and told him what had happened. And he loved that. He just felt so good that we'd had this little success between the two of us, and he said, "Okay, you're going to need this, 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 and this." And I said, "Wait a minute." I said, I don't have any money." He says, "It's okay. It's okay. You can pay me back in honey and wax," which is exactly what I did. At one point, I owed him $5,000, which 1981,
That's a lot of money.
And he still, I mean, we met each other that summer. He didn't know me. Anyway, that went on for about 5 years, and he's the one that got me really into the business. The next year, he did something even better. I showed up to his place one time in late June or mid-June, and he sold a lot of equipment, and they would spend the winter, him and this kid that he hired, they'd nail frames and put together boxes. And I showed up in June after the spring honey flow was over, and this was only my second year there, and I was unfamiliar with a plant called yellow star thistle that grows in southern Oregon and northern California. And he had a mountain of medium boxes and frames with foundation that they had in his garage. I said, "What are you going to do with all this stuff?" He says, "Well, you're going to need it." And I said, "No, man." I said, "Wait a minute now." I said, "I already am really uncomfortable with how much money I owe you." And he said something that took me a minute to figure out. He said, "There's nobody else I'd rather have owe me money than you." And he said it in such a dry fashion that I didn't know what to think about it. And it took me about 5 minutes to realize he just gave me what from Delmer was the ultimate compliment. And he was right that we got a thunderstorm just ahead of the yellow star thistle, which almost never happens in southern Oregon at that time of year. And he said, "We're going to have the best yellow star thistle year that we've had in a long time, and you're going to need these supers." And that spring, I went from 75 colonies. Well, I went from about 100. Let me back up. I went from about 80 because I lost some of those colonies going into winter. I went from 80 to 175, made a bunch of nukes and stuff like that. And I averaged 175 pounds around on that yellow star thistle. And even the old timers said, "We've never seen a crop like this before." But Delmer knew it was coming, and he set me up with the equipment to do it. And that catapulted me into the next year going to 300 and the next year going to 500. Everything he did provided the steps for me to make the next level. And he always was ahead of me. He always said, "Well, you need this." And I'm saying, like, I don't want to buy it from you. I can't afford it. He says, "Well, you got to have it." And he just kept providing these steps for me. And so it's kind of part of the story too.
Wow.
That's a big deal, Bob, because the Bob BINNIE that I know is known for the statement that there's plenty of room at the table for everybody.
Yeah.
And I know you have opened up a lot of doors for us and showed me a lot of things, connected me to ideas and thoughts and ways of beekeeping that you have done graciously and humbly. And I think if you look back into your history and in time, Mr. Delmer did the same thing for you too. He was that lighthouse to you. He had enough intuition and was in tune with the art of not only beekeeping but growth. He was maybe a master of the art of communication and knowing or being in tune. I'm sitting here wondering, man, I wish I knew more about Delmer's story, because I bet there was also someone that was a lighthouse to him that set him on a path that opened up doors for him. And it's been a continual thing, just one person, one beekeeper after the next. And that's a beautiful thing if you really think about that.
Yeah. Well, there may have been somebody, I don't know. He was born in 1911, and he worked as a kid on the family farm in southern Oregon. He was given the task of taking care of the beehives on the farm when he was real young. He said he started when he was 8. By the time he was 11 or 12, it was his job to take care of the couple dozen colonies on the farm. And he told me something funny. He said by the 30s, he was wide open. And he said he made his biggest honey crop in 1939. And this is funny. He said, me and my helper loaded it into a car and sent it to Los Angeles for 4 cents a pound. I thought, well, that's not that much honey if he loaded into a car. And he said, a train car.
Wow.
And back then they put honey, he called it tins. He said we sent a carload of tins to Los Angeles. And tins were was the term they used for a 5-gallon square tin can, and they were using those in the 30s for hauling honey in quantity. They weren't using drums yet. Most beekeepers were using 5-gallon square tins in those days, and he said he was tickled pink at $4 a pound. And I guess in the late Depression that would have been something, would have been a lot of money. Anyway, he got around to running 2,000 colonies with one helper there in the Rogue Valley in Southern Oregon.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, I guess we all owe a hat tip to Delmer too. Delmer put you on a path and opened up doors, and you've done that for so many of us too. Bruce, I know you're also a student of beekeeping and have an appreciation for those that have came before to help set us down the path. We're all on the shoulders of giants, it seems, as we there's the old proverb is there's nothing new under the sun. But it is something neat to spend a little bit of time thinking about, those ones that have came before, that have set us on the path, that have helped open the doors, gave us the tools that we need with no strings attached. That's an incredible kind of a way to live life. Bruce, I know you've been busy down there, growing your operation and raising honey. I know you got to have a question for Bob.
Well, excuse me, sorry, let me get something.
Put Bruce on the spot here. Sorry, Bruce.
No, I knew it was coming. I just needed to clear my throat a little bit. But as we've been talking, my question keeps changing. So I had some nuts and bolts questions about treating for mites and honey production and things like that. But I think I'm gonna wax a little more philosophical on my initial question anyway. I think that's kind of what we're looking for tonight anyway. You've told an incredible story, and I think most of us out there that are successful have some sort of a similar story. We've all had a mentor or mentors that have helped us. Some have some have succeeded by reading books and getting in the bees and trying to figure out. Some have kind of done it on their own, but most people have been surrounded by or known people that have really helped them. I had my first mentor, the guy that got me set up in bees, was very much like that. I did pay him for the products, for the bees and for the equipment, but he was always there to lend a hand to me. And if I didn't pay him, he didn't care, but I always just did. But he was just a great help, and he's kind of on the verge of getting out of the bee business, I think, in the next few years. But I've got a couple of young guys actually now that are really great mentors, more on the commercial type, large sideliner side right now, that have taught me a lot. But I think fast forward a little bit, if you could. I know you mentioned your mentor and the people who helped you get going. As you've grown your business and your operation over the years, obviously you mentioned that you knew from day one that there was a tremendous business opportunity there. That was kind of your focus from day one. I think a lot of people start off just intrigued by bees and want to try it. And some want to stay small, some want to grow, and all kinds of different goals. But have you always kind of a 2-part question, 3-part question here? Obviously, you had the great mentor and the people that kind of helped you along the way. As you've matured in your beekeeping business and operation, obviously now you have the heart of a teacher. You're out here doing these videos, you're participating in things like this. And have you always had that great desire to share and to help other people, or has it grown stronger as you've become more mature and your business has grown? And kind of what got you into the teaching on a larger scale via YouTube and things like that? What kind of motivated you to do that over the years? Kind of how has your desire to teach and share your mentorship desire, how has that grown over the years and developed?
Well, the answer is going to surprise you. I've never had a desire to teach anybody anything. One day I was asked to speak at a small honey packer symposium at Medina, Ohio. Kim Flottam asked me to come up.
Oh, wow.
Huh?
I was just saying, oh, wow. I know of Kim.
Yeah. So he was the editor of Bee Culture at that time. And he was looking for people that were medium, small packers to come up and join the symposium and, talk about what they knew. And Jennifer Berry, who I'm guessing you all know who she is, she said, well, Kim, you need to call Bob because he's doing what you're trying to tell people. And I agreed to go. And it was a nice meeting, and Kim was very gracious. And on the last evening, he took all the speakers out to dinner to a Chinese restaurant. Don't know why I remember that part. But we were sitting across the table from each other and having a nice conversation, and we got to talking about his magazine. And I tried to be just as diplomatic and nice as I could, but I was being a little bit critical. And I said, something that's lacking in your magazine is that there's not enough real beekeepers, successful beekeepers, telling other people how to do it. And he didn't take offense. I didn't mean offense. And he thought about it for a few seconds. And then he leaned across the table and got pretty close to my face and said, the problem is the people that are doing it just don't talk about how they're doing it. And what he was doing was personally challenging me. And when I went to the motel room that night, I understood that. And I suddenly had kind of another one of those aha moments. And I thought, well, what a hypocrite I am. I'm criticizing him for what's lacking in his magazine. And it's people like me that won't step up and, share where we've been and what we think we know. And I just got this bad feeling about myself of being a hypocrite. And I decided that I would write articles. That was my decision. I decided I would write some articles for Kim, and I did. And I only wrote 4 or 5, and 2 or 3 of them turned out real good. And then one day, some guy that was working for me came into the office and said, there's this guy in Canada, Ian Stepler is who he was talking about. So there's this guy in Canada that's feeding bees the exact same way we do. You should look at his videos. I had never in my life looked at one YouTube video ever. I'm at that point, I was really good at sending emails. I was just totally great. You know this about me. I'm not that person. And I watched that video and I thought to myself, well, I think I could do that. And that sent me on the path of making YouTube videos instead of writing articles. And it's been what's happened is totally unexpected. I did not expect to be looked at as somebody the expert, or somebody that's the teacher. That was not where I was heading. It's not what I was trying to accomplish. I was just trying to be a nice person and not be a hypocrite and, to kind of do my moral duty of helping other people a little bit. And it just catapulted me on this path of now. It took me 6 months to put out 3 or 4 videos, and they were semi-successful. So I learned about SEO, site. What do they call it? What's SEO stand for, Greg?
Search engine optimization.
Yeah, so I kind of taught me that. Looked at some YouTube videos. Okay, so I need to do this and this and this to help get my videos seen. And bought a little app called TubeBuddy, which helps with the right names and words. And so I got kind of a handle on that. And suddenly I was at 1,000 subscribers. And then from there, it just went kaboom.
Yeah.
And now it's going so fast. I'm just astounded. Did not expect it. Still a little bit overwhelming. I'm learning how to be gracious when people tell me how good I am or how special I am, because I don't feel that at all. And at first, I would answer compliments like that with something self-deprecating. It was just kind of a timid person at my core. And now I'm learning to be very gracious and appropriate and accept that and accept this role of being somebody that is a teacher. So I'm kind of learning how to step into that concept, but that's not how it started out.
Well, Bob, I kind of a follow-up to that. I think it was probably about 2 years ago, maybe 3. I talked to Cayman one day on the phone, and he talked about the tremendous frustration with a lot of people out here. I would include myself in this, and maybe him when he was smaller, of the fact that the commercial guys didn't share, what they're doing. Obviously, you commercial guys and those who put food on the table with their bees have to keep their bees alive and be successful and learn the business ends of it, the best ways to be profitable, as well as just to keep the bugs alive. You got to be able to do that in order to be successful beekeepers. And so what I think we have was a lot of, hobby beekeepers out here, which hobby beekeepers are awesome, but a lot of people with maybe not a lot of experience I don't know if the word is posing or teaching principles and expecting success, from people all over the country. And I think it's important to there's a breakthrough happening right now, I think, and this is kind of Cayman's whole hive life, I would call it, movement, is to allow everyday beekeepers to get a glimpse into what is successful. I think that's one reason your channel and Ian's channel and people who are legitimate commercial beekeepers who are sharing this content, I think that's one reason that your channels are growing so fast and so successfully, is because you're giving the small scale guys, the brand new beekeepers, a peek into what really works and what it's really like to be a successful beekeeper. And obviously there are many successful beekeepers out there at all levels, whether they have 2 colonies or 10,000 colonies. And it's good for everyone to share, but I think that's what people really like. I like watching your videos. I remember the first one I saw of you was one of your videos on feeding bees, or it may have been the one where you talked about honey. You were doing like a presentation, I think, at a bee club or something, or at somewhere, and you talked about honey and how it breaks down over years. I remember one of the comments in there was, you talked about how, they say that the honey is good for thousands of years in the pyramid, and you said, I wouldn't want to eat that honey or something like that. But you talked about the principles of how the honey kind of breaks down the enzymes.
Yeah.
It's just a really good scientific breakdown of honey. And also you've done several great videos on feeding, and just everything you do, you just allow people to have a peek into, number one, what you're doing, and number two, just the science behind beekeeping. And I think that's extremely valuable for us out here trying to figure some things out. And I recently saw your video. I was very intrigued by it. It was actually one of my favorite videos that I've watched of yours, where you just took a tour of your business. You walked through and you met the people and you talked about the honey tasting and you talked about your facility. And that was just really neat to see that. I remember at the beginning of the video, I think you said, I really am not sure what to film today, so let's just go walk around and shoot the video. And that's the kind of stuff that I just really enjoyed that. And so,
yeah, that was recent. It was a Friday, and I thought,
it was, yeah.
I got nothing. Let's go take some candid camera. But Bruce, your channel is filling kind of a niche too. I see people comment about, like you're showing them your journey.
Mm-hmm.
And would you look at it like that?
I think so. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, and that's my problem, I think. So
people seem to be hooking into that. They like watching your journey, your process of how you're doing, how you're growing and learning, and so you got a following there too.
Well, my goal would be to be like you, but I started a lot later. It'd be very tough to grow that big, and I do work full time, and so I'm very firmly in the sideliner camp. For me to be true commercial, quote unquote, would be very difficult. But I dabble in a little bit of, I send a few bees out to California, very few, and I have a fair honey crop every year, and I'm doing a little bit of everything. I just haven't really gotten into the queen production, but everything else mostly I've done a little bit of, and so I can and I've learned through a lot of mistakes. I've done a lot of things wrong. And I try to kind of share that. If I don't show it, I talk about it, and many times I'll show it if I mess up. And so,
yeah, you're being honest.
But I'm getting, it's getting a little better. I think I'm not a very good record keeper. I'm not very good at documenting everything I do, writing it down on a paper, this hive here and this hive there, and I forget sometimes, and I'm just kind of all over the place. I'm not nearly as organized as all three of you guys are, but I just every year I think I kind of pinpoint a little better.
Organized.
Every year I kind of pinpoint a little better, and I kind of know what to recognize. And I think Bobby made a great point earlier. You just have to crack open the hives and get in there. You just can't read books, and you can't watch videos, and you can't just think you have it figured out just by watching and reading. You have to get in there and read the bees, so to speak. Let them teach you. And I'm going to kind of real quick, Greg, little shout out to Greg's Queens. I recently got some queens from Greg, and I've had really nice bees before. I watch your videos, Bob. Your bees look pretty nice for the most part, and Brian. But these queens I got from Greg, it's been a long time since I've really cracked open a hive, and they have been as calm as that, and you can hear them walking on the frames almost. It's just a beautiful thing. and just the rhythmic, the almost like it's very therapeutic to me. A lot of my bees are quite feisty much of the year, but it's been just really neat to crack open those colonies with the queens from Greg, and just to see that, working really hard. They're not lazy bees. They're moving around the frames, but it's just a rhythmic, just a motion, and it's just kind of neat to see. And I just love that. I'll get discouraged and depressed, and I just open up a colony, and it's just, I just love it. And so I appreciate that.
With a comment like that, Greg, you better up your numbers next year because he just sold some queens for you, a bunch of them probably.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, I can't take, taking the credit for anything is just not my speed. But I keep going back to Delmer setting you on a path. You helped set me on a path and really rearranged a lot of my thinking, and you have a long-lasting impact that I don't think you'll ever fully recognize. But you talked about Demmer giving you those tools that set you down that path. Getting into some of those blue dot genetics, and that had already overwintered for you, had already proven their salt, bringing those back, introducing those to ours, those cells, all those drones, getting that high saturation of those genetics. I mean, there's just something, a lot of folks are listening. They're never going to get the opportunity to crack a lid with Bob. But when you crack those lids, even on a 4-way pallet and doubles, and you pull a frame out, those bees just have this thing where they're just like, it's like a smooth river. They're just kind of going across the frame. They're just kind of doing their thing. They're not skittery, running all over the top of the place. They're not, just staying. They just have this really chilled out vibe to the frame that is an amazing feature to have when you're getting in there and you're opening up so many bees at once. To have them to almost seem cool and collected was a big thing. The joke is, Bob, that Bruce has these Alabama's eye. What do you say?
Alabamaized.
I can't say it right. Spice Girls. They just were a little spicy. And so we were coming down to visit some of the beekeepers. You saw the intro video. We went on a little tour and met some beekeepers and kind of got to know them. Well, the joke was I was going to bring some of these queens down for Bruce. So as a joke, as I'm pulling them, I'm taking the video of pulling the queens, I had a pink marker. And so I marked them all Pepto Pink to help cool down and all those spicy bees. And I've been enjoying Bruce's videos. He's been sharing little updates to where they seem to be kind of smoothing out. And I'm watching Bruce work his bees with no gloves on, which is kind of a big deal. We got a lot of questions, Bob, but I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the art of the queen. There seems to be a certain synergy, an essence, a dynamic that happens that I don't know that we fully know. As if we introduce a queen, how does that necessarily? It doesn't always make the same impact. If you sometimes you can introduce a queen and it's an immediate thing, and the hive cools off. Sometimes it might take a few rounds of brood. What do you think is going on there that is causing the vibe to change so quick with introducing a new queen? And why does it take a little bit longer sometimes for that brood to kind of reorganize to show those traits?
Well, you went a little bit above my head there. I'm not sure I have a good answer. The latter part is obvious. I mean, after a couple rounds of broods, you replace all the bees in the colony, and the feistiness can then be gone. As far as why a colony would settle down almost immediately, I really don't have an answer for that. I don't know. I mean, we could make a lot of theories and, something about pheromones or something like that. I'm afraid I don't have a good answer for that one. I didn't do anything special to those queens. I just bought, artificially inseminated breeder queens from Sue Kobe. That's all there was to it. 6 or 8 years ago, I had feisty bees too. I mean, sometimes I have a friend who put it perfectly. Sometimes we'd come out of the bee yard feeling like we went 2 rounds with Mike Tyson, But in 1 year, I just said, I've had enough of this blankety blank,
Yeah.
and started buying. At first, I bought Carniolan breeder queens from Sue. I had Carniolans from the New World Carniolan line queens that I bought from other queen producers, and I liked them. I remembered liking them. And then I'd had Caucasians from the past too, but at that time Caucasian wasn't available from her. And when we started getting into carniolans, sure enough, the bees started to settle down, and those really feisty bees were fine on a good day with a good honey flow, but the moment it got overcast and things weren't great, they just pepper you. And I started to lose that problem. And then when we started to get into the Caucasian I guess that'd be about 3 years ago, that really had an effect. I mean, our bees calmed way down when we started pushing the Caucasian in there. And I still have to buy queens from a person or two whom Greg, that, to make nukes and packages in the spring. And their bees are what would be considered average. They're not mean bees. But sometimes I have to use their queens in my outfit too, because, for one reason or another, maybe we have nukes left over from making nukes for sale. And we'll work that yard, which is average in my view. And then we'll step into a yard that has this Caucasian carniolan thing going on. And everybody on the crew just takes a breath and says, what a difference. It's just, you can just feel it in the air. We settle down, we feel better, we feel more at ease, because we're less anxious about, getting stung, trying to be super careful not to get stung. And it really comes down to those darker bees we're running, the Caucasians and carniolans. So we're not doing anything special. It's just the breeder queens we buy.
Yeah. Bob, a quick follow-up question. If, just for people watching this video, if they do have the spicy queens, like I still have some, I have one just Monday that I've got one left in one of my bee yards that even though we've got a fall flow coming in, it's a very productive colony. But man, they lit me up. They were just after me. The rest of the colonies in that particular bee yard weren't too bad for the most part, but what would be your recommendation for someone maybe on a hobby to a sideliner level or any level really, if they want to take an overall average of, medium to spicy bees and just tone that down without having to replace every queen in the bee yard, what would be your strategy to do that?
Well,
what would you recommend?
Right off the bat, a brand new beekeeper or a small beekeeper that's not seasoned and experienced at finding queens is going to be intimidated by trying to requeen a colony like that. And there's a trick that works beautifully. If you've got more than one colony, just pick that colony up in the middle of the day and move it to the other side of the yard. And tomorrow there will be no field force in that colony. The field force are the mean bees. They're the ones that do most of the stinging. If you can lose the field force, suddenly you can actually work that colony and find the queen without getting plastered with stings. And you don't have forever. I mean, it's going to generate a field force in short order, but the next day you should be able to work that colony. And of course, most of us know about tricks about, putting a queen excluder in between boxes. So, 4 days later, whichever box has eggs, that's where the queen is. So you can do the move the colony trick. You can do the queen excluder trick to where at least you zero her down to what box she's in. And, there's tricks you can pull to try to make it easier to find the queen. And requeening, absolutely. First thing, just lose. It's either that or a cup of gasoline in the top. Just move them, lose the field force. And not only losing the field force make the colony easier to work, it makes your queen acceptance way better too, because it's the older bees that don't want to accept a new queen. So that's what I would recommend to new beekeepers. Move the colony, lose the field force, and then you can actually get the job done.
Okay, and that field force, I guess, will go into other colonies.
Right, and if you don't have any other colonies, now you got a different problem. Maybe you can move it to the other side of your yard and leave an empty box there with a couple of combs in it, and just lose the field force. Just forgive me, it sounds kind of bad about just letting those bees go to bee heaven, but if you can lose those field force bees, you're going to have a lot better luck.
That is great. That's a great answer. And I've never really thought of doing it that way, but and that's because, boy, trying to wade through a colony that's just got 60,000, 70,000 bees in it that are just mad.
Well, in your case, let's use your outfit as an example. You have 4-way pallets, right?
I've got a little bit of both, but just pick
the colony up, move it 10 feet. The bees will go back to the other 3 colonies on the pallet. Now you can work that colony. And after it gets, set it on anything, some scrap bottom board, whatever. And then after the queen's accepted, you can just every few days move it 2 feet and move it back to the pallet again.
Yeah, or even you could just move it back, and with the realization that, you know, the field force bees that are in that one will now go into their colonies and we'll be fine. So,
Or if the spot you're moving it back to is their only choice. I mean,
yeah,
if it's not another pallet closer, they'll find their corner, you know.
sure, they'll figure it out.
Mhm.
That's one thing I remember. When I first started thinking about doing a little bit of palletizing my bees, I had, I think, 9 or 10 nukes sitting up at the farm, and I'd introduced queens in them, and they were doing really well, just bees everywhere. They were across from my production hives up at the farm, and one day, it wasn't the best time of the day to do it, but I had to kind of just get it done. So I went up there, and my idea was to use those nukes that I created. They were early spring nukes as some of my my palletized bees to send off to pollination that first year. And I went up to the farm, I loaded them up in my truck, and I drove away. 10 o'clock in the morning, field force was out, you know, doing their thing. And I remember looking back over my, you know, looking at it, and there were bees, a cloud of bees, no place to go at all. Just these field force was out there, and it was spring. So there was it was probably in April or May, I think, actually. And it's bees everywhere. And I just left. And I came back, you know, a couple hours later, and they were no bees flying around. They had just found other colonies to go into, and there were really no other colonies right there. They were kind of across the road, probably 30 or 40 feet away, but they found some place to go.
Yeah.
So there's a misconception I think people have that bees will go back and they'll hang out on that landing where the hive was and just sit there and die, but they'll usually find a place to go. It seems like to me anyway.
Yeah, if there's another beehive in the vicinity, they absolutely will.
Figured out. Awesome stuff. I'm gonna have to do that when I try to requeen. The other problem I have, Bob, is actually finding the queen. I noticed when you're out there with your crew, many times I see you, a couple of you confirm that the queen either is or is not on a frame.
Yeah.
So what do you have any tips or tricks? And I know, Greg, we're looking at philosophical stuff here, but do you have any tips or tricks to finding a queen in a packed out beehive? You've already talked about a couple, but is there anything different tricks?
You know, when we do that, when I look at a frame and I don't think the queen's there, and then I hand it to somebody else on the crew and let them look at it, you know, we still miss a couple. I mean, somehow you don't get them all. And it's like a quantity over quality game. I mean, sometimes we just miss a couple, and I know that, and I accept that risk. It's a little bit of a crapshoot, and we just do it. If you absolutely find the queen every single time, it just takes so much time. And so you have to weigh the benefits, the pros and cons, you know. How much did it cost? Of course, I'm always looking at it from a money point of view. How much does it cost me to make darn sure I find that queen versus how much does it cost me if I have a few nukes that end up with the old queen and a few colonies that end up queenless and have to rear a new queen? And it really falls on the side of just not absolutely finding the queen. It's cheaper to do it that way. You know, a lot of beekeepers, big guys I know, they make zero effort to find a queen. They just split colonies to pieces and let the chips fall. And they'll figure out where the old queen is later. It's obvious, you know, and then they'll kill her or let her go if she's doing a good job. And they don't even worry about it. So sometimes I wonder if I'm being less efficient at trying to be so careful about getting all my colonies requeened every year. That's costly, not just the cost of the queen, but in the labor. I'm probably, if I was somehow magically able to pencil all that out, I might find that I'm spending more money in relationship to how much I make than these guys that make no effort at all to requeen, just split their bees and let the chips fall where they may. And then, of course, you know, I have much better overwintering and all of that stuff, but I pay a price for it, you know?
Yeah. My buddies down here that kind of are my younger guys that are kind of my newer mentors they just will split like in early spring, really almost too early, it seems like, but they'll find some cells somewhere and they'll literally split everything and then just drop a queen cell in every colony.
Yeah.
And that, you know, and that way it just, and I did that this year and had just absolutely tremendous success. I mean, it's just like, you know, I don't know if those new queens come out and kill the old queen. I guess the bees just figure it out. And then a few of them obviously didn't take, but man, if you can double your colonies and if you have a 10% loss or 20% loss, you're still way above where you started. you know, and so it's,
Well,
it's a neat thing.
Some of what I do, I'm convinced is vanity. Like I'll give you an example. If you look at my outfit, you know, my boxes are reasonably good. They're not perfect, but we got decent equipment. Well, there's a cost to that too. And guess what? The bees don't care. I mean,
Right,
the bees
absolutely.
just don't care. So why are all these boxes looking good and painted and nice? And that's my vanity. And you know, we could look at the queen in the same way. You know, I want to do the best I can. Well, maybe doing the best I can isn't the most efficient way. You know, so, but it's just how I have to do it. And Greg can tell you, we got good equipment. I like good stuff. I like good trucks. I like good things, and I want my bees to be good too. And I'm probably paying a price for that. Like maybe vanity is the wrong word, but that's the word I'm going to use.
Well, you laugh about it, but tonight's topic really, at least the train of thought, is the art of beekeeping. There is definitely something to be said when you know your boxes are right, and you know that your lids are solid, and you know you have all the equipment in place to do the job, actually exercise the art of beekeeping. And of course, you know, like you mentioned earlier, the definition of art is, you know, developing the skills over from experience. You know, experience has showed you that yes, you can let these ratty boxes go for X amount of time, then it becomes a problem, or these lids, then it can finally be a problem. There is something to be said about the. I think I would. I don't want to say I would disagree with you, Bob. Knowing you, I don't think you having nice equipment is an attempt at vanity. There is a certain aesthetic quality that when you are putting yourself in with the right brushes, the right paints, the right canvas, now you as the artist can create, and you
Well,
can do all the things that you need to. You're not going to be doing that if you're tripping over broken boxes and you're throwing stuff away or you're getting frustrated. So I
well,
think that
if nothing else, it makes me feel good. I'm going to ask you to give me 10 seconds. I'm going to go over to my bookshelf. I want to read to you the foreword of 50 Years Among the Bees. If you give me 10 or 20
cool.
seconds,
Yep.
I'm going to go find it's right on this topic. It's brilliant. I want to go find that book. I'll be
Okay.
right back.
Brian, what do you say we go ahead and we'll take care of the next tonight's second giveaway, the grand giveaway tonight, of course, coming up here soon is a nuke that has that a queen that is the blend of Bob's Southern Appalachian queens and a blend of our northern. That's going to be our grand prize for tonight, though. For our second giveaway, you can go right to our website, naturesimagefarm.com, to find more information about these. If you're interested in bucket plugs or feeders, we have those here too. Tonight, I want to give away 4 of these bucket feeders. We'll ship them to you. These have been a game changer for us growing from backyard to sideline and then some. They're a big deal. And so I want to give 4 of those away tonight. So if you're interested in that, just do #buckets in the comments below. And then Brian will work his magic and kind of get all that queued up, and we'll get them shipped out. But especially this time of year, making sure the bees have feed is a real big deal. So hit that comment, #buckets, and then we'll catch up with that here on the Wheel of Fortune here soon.
Wow.
Bob, did you find the book?
Oh, yes, I did. I had just about given up. It's sitting right here in front of me. I got a pile of books about this high, and I didn't realize it was there. Okay, this is an old book.
Oh, wow.
Okay,
Wow.
Look at that.
this is an old book.
That's awesome.
Yeah, let me. This is cool. I like this forward. This is 50 Years Among the Bees by Dr. C.C. Miller. And he wrote a lot of articles for Bee Culture magazine and I guess maybe American Bee Journal too, a long time ago. And you're going to hear how long ago when I read this forward to this book. Okay, there we go. Introduction. You ready? Okay. One morning, 5 or 6 of us who had occupied the same bedroom the previous night during the North American Convention at Cincinnati in 1882 were dressing in preparation to another day's work. Among the rest were Bingham of smoker fame and Vandervoort, the foundation millman, and I think it was Professor Cook who was chaffing these inventors, saying something to the effect that they were always at work studying how to get up something different from anybody else. And if they needed an implement, they would spend $1 in a day's time to get up one of their own make rather than pay 25 cents for one that was better and already made. Vandervoort, who sat contemplatively, rubbing his shins, replied, "But they take a world of comfort in it. And I think all beekeepers are possessed of more or less the same spirit. Their own inventions and plans seem to be best to them, and in many cases they are right to the extent that two of them, if they had almost opposite plans, would be losers if they exchanged those plans." So I think that that's kind of along the same thing we're talking. It's what you do. If it makes you feel good and you're happy, you know, that part of it, that's part of the key to success. You feel good about what you're doing, even if it's completely different than somebody else. It can lead to success. Greg, your mic's off.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's one reason they say, you ask 5 beekeepers a question, get 10 different answers.
Yeah.
Just because different things work differently for different people. So
Yeah.
I like that, Bob, because it speaks to, I think, a few things. But, one thing it kind of reinforces that there's plenty of room at the table, not just to collaborate with folks at whatever level that it is, but you can entertain different ideas. You can share different ideas. You can have a different way of doing things altogether. It doesn't make one right or wrong. It's whatever is acknowledging and being in tune with what is working for you and your bees and your context for whatever goals that you have. And I think appreciating the individuality of that is really cool, because once you get past this is the right way or the wrong way or somebody else's way or mimicking or copycat or cookie cutter approach, now you're all of a sudden into this whole new realm of beekeeping where it's your bees, and you're looking at the feedback in that relationship to make decisions, to make choices, to move things forward a certain way. And I think that's a big deal. If you are involved in the art of beekeeping, you kind of have to be in tune with those things. Otherwise, you're just exercising the same act that everybody else is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think doing it your way truly is the art of beekeeping.
Well, we don't want to keep you all night, Bob. We appreciate you being on here. I've got a kind of a heavy question that I think it speaks to a lot of us. A lot of us have gone from backyard scale to sideline scale. We're growing the sideline, and we're at the precipice of, okay, how much further do we go? We're putting all this time and energy and effort into this thing that we feel called or drawn to. For some folks, it's straight up business. For some folks, they don't know. This is the path that they're on. They're going where the river takes them. I know in the past, in the podcast that you did with us, and also the videos that you did with us, the Contrary Beekeeper Show, we kind of touched on a little bit of this, of your growth. You got to recognize and appreciate Delmer for putting you on the path. You've grown at the rate that you have. Dan helped influence this question, and I'm going to paraphrase and maybe add a little to it. Is as you have grown and you have been walking this path for all these years, have you ever gotten to a point to where you have felt like quitting, or that you've been burnt out, or that you are at the end of the rope? If so, what have you done to kind of get past that, and to motivate you to kind of dig in and kind of keep moving forward? Was there ever a point in time where you really had to rein things back and reevaluate before you could move forward?
Well, the answer is yes. I have had a couple occasions where I was burned out, but the answer to the problem will surprise you. I just had to get some rest. I was just tired.
Yeah.
When I get really well rested, and I'm actually right now today, I'm the end of the season. I'm burned out. I'm tired. I didn't even know how well I would be with you guys tonight. I don't know if you can tell, my eyes are red. I'm just fried. I'm overworked, and here I am thinking, do I really want to do this anymore at the pace I'm doing it? And it happens every year. And then about November, I get well rested, and the brain starts coming up with creative ideas, and suddenly I'm on the path to growth again. right now, today, just today, I guess I'm going to share with you kind of a deep, dark secret here. Just today, I called up my CPA and went and spent an hour with him. I'm at a crossroads in my career here. You know, this business is darn near paid for, which is a place I've never been before. I've made a lot of money over the years, but it's all gone back into the business. That's why we have this place and I have this stuff, there's been right up till 2 or 3 years ago, I had employees making bigger checks than I was, but it didn't mean I wasn't making money. I just wasn't seeing it because I was pouring it back into paying off assets and improving equipment and all that stuff. So right now, today, I went in and talked to the bookkeeper and I said, I need to see a P&L. I want to see where we're standing. And the number of the profit this year so far was truly mind-blowing. I thought, this can't be so. And she said, Bob, this is what it is. She says, this is how much you've made so much this year. And so now that I don't have the debt to pay off, suddenly I'm going to be putting a serious amount of money in my bank account next year. And I'm thinking, well, wait, okay, I've never had this experience before. So what do? Do I start piling money into the bank account or do I keep growing? I'm 69 years old in just a few weeks. Okay.
Oh, wow.
So, do I just say, okay, the growth is over. I'm just going to, ride this vehicle and, sell out in a few years and, ride away into the sunset, or do I want to keep pushing? I have these creative ideas. I know what I want to do. I want to add, where it's at, Greg. I want to add on another addition on the back of the building back there so I can move the extracting room and move the comb room out the back door and then move the honey pouring processing room, let it overflow into the extracting room so everything can get bigger. But to do that, I take on another $400,000 or $500,000 in debt. So I had a very serious conversation with my CBA today, and I just really don't know quite what to do. So do I keep on growing, or do I just my whole life I've been in this growth mode, bigger, better, more, go for it. And now suddenly today I'm thinking, well, what do I do now? Is it time to start thinking of retiring, or do I want to keep thinking of growth? I'm not really sure what to do, to tell you the truth. I'm at a crossroads.
Have you ever been at that crossroad before where it felt like, okay, I'm pushing so hard and here's the result? Is that what causes, do you think, the burnout, or is it just sheer exhaustion over the years?
It's getting tired. Yeah. This has happened many years for me. At the end of the year, I'm just tired.
Yeah.
And we all know this. Everybody I'm looking at on the screen, when you get tired, you get testy. You lose your patience. And your
thoughts aren't as clear either. When you're fatigued, right. You're not going to be in the right mindset. And there's days, even at my scale, there's days where I'm just super fatigued from work, and I walk out into my apiary, and after checking one colony, I just walk away.
Yeah.
Because I'm just not in the right mindset. I'm too tired. And then once you go back and you are rested, and it's almost like you just flip that reset. Your mind is clear, and you approach those colonies in a certain calm manner, other than being fatigued and just let's get it done. And the whole experience with them is different when you are rested.
Well, something else occurs, and Greg, I think you'll appreciate this. And when you're tired, your intuition doesn't work right.
That's right.
When you're really well rested and you feel brilliant and light, and your intuition works, and suddenly things become clear that weren't clear before. And that, for me, that usually starts to happen around November, when the dust is settled and I'm sleeping good every night and only working 8 hours a day. And maybe my question that I'm presenting to you guys, maybe that'll all become clear here in a month or two after I get some rest and get back to normal. And I'm very, very guilty of just pushing myself too hard. I often get asked, why? What's the key? Why are you successful? And I'll tell you, it's real simple. I can put it in in one sentence, and that is that I usually bite off more than I can chew, and then I figure out how to chew it.
Yeah.
And that's why I kind of overdo I push myself too hard sometimes. But also, in my own defense, it makes me happy. I like to grow. I like to build. I'm a builder. I'm not a sitter. I'm a builder. And if I'm not building, I'm not happy. So, yeah, there's a lot going on in my life, right? You'll know next year. You'll either see in a YouTube video, you'll see a new building going up or not,
There's something intrinsic, it seems like, with a lot of beekeepers. There is something about the challenging ourselves, our thinking, maybe sometimes even physically, but challenging, trying to do better, digging in, growing.
Yeah.
You can't help but think that. And so, I hope you figure out how to, if you decide to, okay, we hit our growth cap, now let's maintain. I really like to talk to you once you figure out either, yes, I'm growing. I'd love to pick your brain, and have you back on. What was that determining factor to grow? And then if you got good with internally and just saying, hey, you know, I've done what needed to be done here. Here's the cap. Let's maintain this, and then see where we go from there. I'd love to know the mindset of that, because a lot of us struggle constantly. This is, I don't mean anything by this, but I'm talking about myself, and a lot of folks are probably listening. Sometimes you feel like it's not good enough. No matter what you do, it's never to where you want it to be. And even where you get to further than where you projected you wanted to be, it's never good enough. We never take enough time to appreciate the journey every single year. And then it's 5 years, and then it's 10 years. And we forget to look back. I think something that I've taken away that just kind of clicked in that last 10 seconds is when Delmer mentioned to look back. I don't know what exactly he meant in that intuitive conversation, but I think it's a reminder for all of us to also, as we grow and we dig and we push, to make sure that we are checking the rear view every now and again and appreciate how far down the road we've traveled, where we've came from, because it's really easy to get discouraged because you're not further up the mountain than you want to be. But the fact of the matter is, man, you're climbing, you're moving forward. That's a big deal, I think, to just take a little bit of time and appreciate that too.
Well, you're absolutely right. And for me, I don't think it's a matter of not appreciating. Trust me, I'm in awe of what's happened here constantly. And I've really, really enjoyed the journey. It's really satisfying when you build something and it's working. That's very satisfying. And this is going to sound a little corny, but I don't know Bruce and Brian real well, but I know you well enough, Greg, to know that you're going to appreciate this. And part of this thing is service. I once read a clip from a man that said, as long as we are breathing, how did it go? I'm going to paraphrase. As long as we are breathing God's fresh air, it's our duty to contribute and provide a service. I'm paraphrasing. I'm not getting the words right, but that's the gist of it. And I like to do that. Not everything I do is about money. I'm happy to work and knowing that I'm not going to get something personally out of it. And I really do, honestly, look at this business as a service. It's not just a way to make money, but it's a way to really contribute to society and contribute to the big picture. And I know many of your viewers are going to kind of poo-poo that thing, but Greg, you know me, that's how I think. I like to think that I'm helping and providing a service, and this business right here is doing just that. So that's part of the picture too.
I think everyone listening, I think, are very familiar with some of the things that we say regularly. One of those things is it's not just about beekeeping. It's about being your brother's keeper. What we do, not only as a business or as a beekeeper, the bees are, for me, the bees are the conduit to the people. And that's where we are really put in a position where we can serve others. I like to look at it is in a way, it's a ministry in serving others, doing what we can just to help somebody along their way. If we can help open a door, it might just be a can of WD-40 so the hinges aren't so squeaky. We might be helping create a door, and we might be opening the door. We might be giving them the courage to walk through the door. Whatever that it is, when you live that kind of a life in service, it is extremely rewarding. You know, my wife and I, we have 7 kids. We're raising them on the farm. We have a roof. We have food. We have clothes. We have a place to create. We have a place to engage with others and express love in all these manners. That's an incredible blessing. So when God wakes me up in the morning and I have breath in my lungs and I'm on my own 2 feet, the real reward in life is to be able to be in that position to serve others. And I think, Bob, I know you 100% believe that, and I think everyone listening does too.
Okay, good talk.
Bob, we've got one more question for you. But first, everyone everyone loves giveaways. So,
Okay.
Brian, go ahead and spin the wheel for the bucket giveaway. And while we're doing that, if giveaways are your thing, be sure to tune in over on the Bohemia Bees YouTube channel on October 19th at 8 p.m. Jason's got it going on there. His channel is getting ready to hit 10,000 subscribers. So definitely join in for the fun. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, if you haven't subscribed, go subscribe as well on Jason's channel.
R. Okay. We'll have to verify your YouTube status and email, and we'll get you an email, and we'll get you 4 buckets with the plug sent out to you. I'm just going to make a note here. And then, Brian, can you do a backup spin on that one?
I'll have to key it in again. I killed it.
We'll figure it out. That's okay.
Yeah, here.
We've got one more. We've got a question. That's okay, Brian. We've got a question from a good friend of ours, Jose Uribe, the California beekeeper, Uribe honeybees out of California. Brian's going to queue that question up. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and let's get past before Bob answers the question here. Let's go ahead and actually we'll end with the giveaway. Go ahead and let's play the question and get Bob's his response to it.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Bob,
Hey.
I have a question for you. I know your beekeeping ventures began in the West Coast.
Yeah.
Now you're in the East Coast. So my question is, what were those adjustments that you had to do in beekeeping? Just asking for a friend. I'm out here in Tennessee, over here in Chattanooga.
Oh.
I don't know. Tennessee's looking kind of nice.
Okay, so re-ask the
Maybe.
question. I missed 1 or 2 words. Re-ask. Can he hear me okay?
No, it was pre-recorded. The question was, what adjustments did you have to make going from California or going from the West Coast to Georgia? What adjustments have you had to make with your beekeeping?
I think he was still going. Is he still going?
Just asking for a friend. I'm out here in Tennessee.
It's on a loop, so it'll play again.
All right, I think I got it now.
Looking kind of nice.
Yeah, well, there was some. It's different here. My
rock and roll.
Okay, my emphasis of how I do business here is much different. On the West Coast, when I was in Southern Oregon, I did some of my colonies pollinated 4 different gigs a year. I'd start in California and do the almonds, then the pears in Southern Oregon, and apples in Washington State, or cranberries on the coast of Oregon, or cherries up in the Willamette Valley, whatever. I was always pollinating, and honey was kind of the side benefit to all that. When I came here, it's exactly the opposite. I don't pollinate anything anymore. And I had to change the way I make the money. We go after honey production, bee production, honey packing, in other words, buying and packing and selling honey, and then our retail store. So that's the adjustment I made, is that the pollination in Georgia is here, but it's nothing like it is on the West Coast. So I had to change the way I looked at things. And let's see, what else? Well, honestly, sourwood provided me a lot of opportunity here. You don't make it every year, but when you do, it's such a high dollar crop that really was of paramount importance in this honey production aspect of my business. Out here, I finally came to the conclusion that you have to diversify your income. You need more than one iron in the fire. Out on the West Coast, the pollination really drove my business, and I only had that one big iron in the fire and then a minor iron in the fire with the sales of honey. Out here, I've got 4 major irons in the fire. And in Tennessee, I would say it'd probably be the same situation. There's not a lot of pollination opportunities right in Tennessee. I think you would have to concentrate more on honey production and bee production. There's a tremendous potential for selling nukes and packages and things right there in Tennessee, and Queens too. The season starts later, of course, but I think it's just about how are you going to make your money and get used to the humidity, because it ain't the West Coast is way different.
It's a great question there. Brian, if you would, let's go ahead and give away the grand prize giveaway for tonight. It's a spring nuke here from Nature's Image Farm, which is going to include that Appalachian Mutt Queen, which, like we've talked about earlier today, is started off with Bob giving us some tools
I'm
to help.
I'm gonna do the backup for the buckets, and then
the buckets first.
Yep.
Okay,
So,
Darren, and I also want to thank Darren Cap. He just joined the channel as a member. So Darren, thanks for that. We'll put Darren as the backup for the buckets. Is that what we're doing, Brian?
Yep. Yeah, Darren will be the backup.
Darren's the backup for the buckets. And then thanks for joining the channel as a member, Darren, and for all the folks who sent a super chat, Bruce, Brian, Lisa. And if I missed anybody else, I'm sorry, but we appreciate you. Thanks for doing that. The nuke, of course, is for pickup only. We're here in the Hopewell, Zanesville area of Ohio. That'll be available late May, early June, however the weather kind of unfolds. Like we mentioned earlier, it's going to be a 5-frame nuke that's going to have our Appalachian Mutt Queen, which is heavily influenced by the genetics that we blended from Bob and our Ohio stock here. So I guess, Brian, what should we do here? Have everyone just hashtag 2023 nuke?
Yep.
And then we'll hit that there towards the end there. Bob, I want to thank you for taking some time with us, tonight. I wondered if you had any final thoughts that you wanted to share about the art of beekeeping, what that means to you.
Well, first I want to ask a question. I heard the 10,000 subscribers. Is that you?
No, Bohemia Bees. Jason Crook. He's up over in the Maryland area. Bohemia Bees.
And he's got 10,000 subscribers.
He's getting real close. Yep.
Wow, cool. That's getting up there.
Yep.
The art of beekeeping. Wow. I think we said a lot about the art of beekeeping. This may be a little different subject, but I think, to be successful at beekeeping, it really, and I throw this word out there, Cayman keeps making me famous for it, and that is tenacity. It really takes a lot of tenacity. You have to be tenacious to be successful at this. If you're going to be a hobbyist, maybe not so much, but as a sideliner or making your living at it, you've got to be willing to take the ups and the downs together. And I always tell people ask me, what's your honey average? I say, well, you need to ask for the 10-year average, not the 1 or 2 year average. And because we all know there's those bad years in there. I've seen several beekeepers go out of business. They borrow a bunch of money because they've had a few good years with their 15 colonies, and they pencil it out and go, I can make money at this. And just to have 2 or 3 bad years in a row and they get out of the business, you just got to be willing to take the ups and the downs. I know that has nothing to do with the art of beekeeping, but it's just a word of advice. If you're going to be in it for the long haul, you got to think about the long haul and be tenacious, and and plus the mistakes. Oh my goodness, the art of beekeeping really comes with having made so many mistakes. I like to tell people it's not that I'm all that smart. It's just that I've been doing this 40 years, and after a while, some things start to stick. You screw something up enough times, eventually you go, wait a minute now, maybe I'm doing this wrong. And I guess that's part of the art of beekeeping too. That comes down to the experience part. Just hang in there. I feel so sorry for people that, get a colony or 2 or 10 and have a good year or 2. And then when it goes bad, they just give up. I wish I could talk people into just hanging in there a little longer. I think they would enjoy themselves in the long run if they could just hang in there during the down times. I know that's kind of a downer. I don't mean to end this all on a down note, but I'm just trying to be encouraging, tell people to hang in there, stick with it. Yeah.
And those are great words. I mean, this is the time of year where I know a lot of us we feel tired. We feel burned out. We're questioning everything. And if we know ourselves, then we know we do this every year, and we try to remind ourselves that, and just get rest. We're kind of reorganize our thoughts, because it's easy to kind of go down those dark thoughts and second guess everything. So sharing that with us, Bob, is tremendous. I will never, as long as I live, never forget you looking back and smiling as we're driving down the road and saying, there's days I still don't know what I'm doing. There is such a freedom in it. And if Bob Binney doesn't know what he's doing sometimes from day to day, there's a lot of freedom for us that we can get in there. We can make those mistakes. We can gain that experience. We can build those skills as we develop our own individual arts of beekeeping. And I think that's a really, really big deal. Brian, you want to hit that? Go ahead and hit the winner. We'll probably want to do a backup in case they don't want to come to Ohio to pick it up. So go ahead and spin the wheel. Frank Lane. Okay, congratulations, Frank Lane. That'll be pickup here in Zanesville, Ohio, in late May or early June. And then, Brian, you're going to do a second backup on there.
The backup will be... I saw Dan on there.
Dan's trying hard, isn't
he?
James Miller. Okay. All right. So if you've won the honey sampler, the buckets, the nuke, be sure to send us an email at naturesimagefarm at gmail.com. We'll get with you and kind of make all those arrangements. Bob, as we close out, I just want to thank you again for taking the time to, one thing that I think whether you're a very humble kind of guy, and I know you don't want the accolades, and you're not looking for the respect, but I think the type of guys that gain it are the ones that aren't looking for it. And there's a lot of us out there that owe an awful lot of the success we're finding with our beekeeping on our paths because of you being humble, sharing what it is that you are doing, that the serving others in all the ways that you do is making a tremendous impact on folks. I've said it before. I'll keep saying it. You have been the lighthouse on the hill I know for us and for so many that if it weren't for the lighthouse, I'm not sure where the ship would be. So, Bob, I want to thank you again for taking the time and for being just being you, being that lighthouse to others. Thanks again for taking some time for us tonight.
Thank you, Greg. That's nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
In closing here, we've talked about the art of beekeeping, and the art of life goes hand in hand. You can't help not see the art of everything once you're in tune with the art and acting kind of under those tenets. Today, our family lost somebody who was a true artist by every sense of the word. Susie lost her grandpa Fred today. For those that knew Fred, he was a one-of-a-kind. That old bird Ferd introduced me to art. He introduced me to jazz, introduced me to Miles Davis, Dave Brubeck, Art Blakey. Fred was also a photographer. Fred got me down the path. He set me on the path and gave me tools for photography. Take the time to kind of mentor me through that. We would send photos back and forth, and was a huge inspiration for us in learning the art of photography, but also capturing nature, capturing that shot, looking for the shot, seeing those things everywhere, finding the art in absolutely everything and capturing that. And I owe that to Fred Bishop. Fred passed on today. Fred, like I said, was a huge influence. When I think of Fred, I think of one particular song. And as an homage to Fred, I want to dedicate tonight's talk, The Art of Beekeeping, to Fred Bishop. And Brian, if you would, I want you to spin that track for old Fred. Old Fred, take 5.